end of Ghost Story. Here you go.
So what I'm taking from this is that you don't want any spoilers. Is that all right? You're on here, man.
I already read it too. He gets the chance to play 20 questions with a certain someone.
Okay.
And he doesn't really ask anything about her concerning the area that he's in.
Okay.
And I was wondering if there was a reason to that, or just Harry didn't think of it.
He was kind of busy. Dresden generally has his plate full, and he spends a lot of time in between the stories going, I could have done that more intelligently. But unfortunately, when you're the guy who's on the ground and there's all kinds of wild, funky stuff happening to you, you kind of make your decisions and go, and just hope that somebody doesn't smash you flat while you're trying it. What was question 2?
Never mind.
You show great wisdom, Pat. Red shirt, right here. You are expendable, sir.
With the trend, I got 2 questions for you.
Okay.
First off, the character progression of Tavi in Codex Alera seems to be kind of like Harry's. It's just much more compressed, where he starts off low, gets a little bit more power, and then at the end he has like this massive power boost between the 5th and 6th books. And I was just wondering if something similar to that is going to happen to Harry, like right before the Apocalyptic Trilogy.
He says that he's seeing a parallel progression between Tavi in Codex Alera and Dresden in the Dresden Files. And Tavi goes all Super Saiyan and everybody right around book 5 or 6. And are we going to see something of the same thing happen to Dresden? The answer to that is that I never want Dresden to be the big fish in the pond. I want Dresden to be the smart, fast, medium-sized fish who is constantly outclassed by all the actual big fish. And I don't see how we're going to get out of that. No, I'm not planning on skyrocketing Dresden anytime soon, although next book should be pretty interesting. We'll see how that turns out. I think Dresden is in the process of finding out that the pond is a whole lot bigger than he thought it was. There's going to be all kinds of new doors opening after this particular book. Or as I told my shocked editor, after she read the end of Changes, what she said, I think she said something along the lines of, "What were you thinking?" and my response was, "Now we can do the good stuff."
Second one is, I was wondering if you had a Bible of all of the stuff for Codex Alera, like the world, the monsters, everything that existed in it that you didn't have a chance to put in the books. And if you did, are you planning on publishing that?
Okay, so I have a Bible for all the stuff, for all things Codex Alera, and if so, do I plan on publishing it? I do have a Bible, it's called the Wikipedia. Because seriously, I'll keep much better track of this stuff than possible. By the time I've done a book, I've seen about 7 or 8 slightly different versions of the same book, and besides which, I've also seen all the versions that I might have written and decided not to write for whatever reason. So, by the time you get up to 6 books in the series, that's keeping tracks of slightly different versions of 50 novels or so, plus a bunch of potential bits, and a lot of times I'll completely blank on what actually went into the final, and go check Wikipedia. Because seriously, I mean, it's absolutely valuable, and I love the internet. Over here.
Okay. I had a friend who wrote a pretty sizable novel, and I thought it was really well done, but he won't shop it around to any publishers. He wrote it before we all kind of discovered Dresden Files and Arthur. And he said he wouldn't shop it around because it had too many geek references, too many Buffy references, too many role-playing game references. I was wondering, did you run into any problems with that whenever you're trying to shop around Dresden?
He says he has a friend who wrote a novel that everybody thought was pretty good, and he didn't want to shop it around because he thought it had too many geek references in it. Too much Star Wars and Buffy, too many Star Wars references, too many Buffy references. The answer to that is the editor that bought the Dresden Files is really she's about as geeky as a New York editor can get. Jen Heddle, she's very big in the fan community, and maybe it helped selling things to her. I don't know. nobody ever really said, hey, can you tone down the pop culture references? I mean, I'm sure that, gosh, the Dresden Files is sure going to play 50 years from now. But, you know, I didn't write it for posterity. I wrote it for the people like me, you know, who spend way too much time, you know, playing role-playing games and video games and watching good stuff on TV. Right here, sir.
I've worked with the Kukri about 35 years now. I'm very fascinated with the use of the Kukri in the series. Can you see more Kukri play?
Any more Kukri action coming in the future? For those who don't reference that right away, that's the knife that Thomas is employing when he's not using a falcata, which is basically a big Kukri. Well, yeah, I mean, because it's just such a great head chopping knife, and you know, there's always some head chopping to be done. Over here.
So I'm taking you way back to when you were first doing this in the class. How did you know you were going to be? How did you decide that it was going to be Harry? Because it's a long book series. I'm getting started as a writer, and I have a little bit of writer ADD.
How did I decide on Dresden's name?
Well, not Dresden. No, not his name. Just this is the character you were going to be with for this whole book series.
Okay. Well, I mean, remember that the only reason I wrote the first book was to prove my writing teacher how wrong she was about writing stuff. Remember that from there. That said, the way I put it together was I went and I scrapped all my favorite wizards and private eyes and made a Frankenstein out of their parts, and that's where it came from. I said, okay, I'm gonna take Gandalf's temper, and I'm gonna take Merlin's meddling, and we'll use Sherlock's chassis and about 3/4 of his brain. I'll take Travis McGee's testicles, just for the pure fortitude, and I'll add in Spencer's mouth. Although I never really managed to out Spencer Parker, or at least I haven't so far. Maybe I'll go another 20, 25 years. But, and that's how I put it together. I mean, that's what I did. It's a very artificial process, and you can see, as I keep telling my writing teacher, how awful things turn out when you do that kind of thing. Great shirt.
At the Masquerade Ball, you had Mr. Pharaoh dressed up as a green-eyed centurion. It seems like a lot of the more powerful characters in Codex Alera also have green eyes. Is that coincidence, or is there something, some other thing going on?
No, it's coincidence. I mean, you know, eyes pretty much come in blue, green, and brown, so there's going to be some overlap, or some mix of those shades. It's not my fault. I guess I can mess up everybody's eyes with funky colors, like Sanderson likes to do. Anybody read The Way of Kings, by the way? I finished that this afternoon. Oh my gosh, what a good book. Okay, I'm sorry, that was a complete aside.